Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and with me is Travis from Cutscenes.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, this is exciting, and we're going to be talking about everybody's gone to the Rapture. And I guess before we do that, do you want to tell us briefly about Cutscenes?
Yeah, so Cutscenes is a podcast where me and two of my friends, Katie Lesperance and Jacob McCourt, we pretty much cover and we'll watch and review and cover TV and movie video game related stuff. So different adaptations, if it's, we'll see if they're good or they're bad and have little discussions and different segments. And we have a lot of fun with it. So yeah, it's great.
Cool. No, perfect. Yeah, it's a very fun show. Katie and Jacob have both been on this podcast before, so if you don't know Cutscenes, even more reason. They've all been here now. And
yeah,
we've all talked about games. You should.
We've all been here.
Yeah, which is great. It's awesome. Very cool to get to do that. So definitely check Cutscenes out. I really like it. Most recently, you guys did that Mortal Kombat episode on the new one, and that was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. I was pushing for, I'm this is a movie that's coming out right now. We've got to do this now. Because most of these movies come out so long ago that it's not really topical. If we had a chance to actually, talk about something brand new that everyone's talking about at the same time was kind of fun. So.
Yeah, that was super cool. I actually started listening to the episode, and I hadn't seen the movie, and then you guys were all like, we liked it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go watch it and come back.
Yeah, go watch it.
Yeah, because, sometimes the movie, it's the old Mortal Kombat, and it's oh, that wasn't great. So it's okay, I can just enjoy it vicariously through you.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's awesome, though. Highly recommend the show, though, for anyone listening. But, I guess with that, we should get into Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. I've got a description here for it. Would you like to get that, Travis?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture tells the story of the inhabitants of a remote English valley who are caught up in a world-shattering of events beyond their control and understanding. Made by the Chinese Room, the studio responsible for the hauntingly beautiful Dear Esther. This tale of how people respond to the face of grave adversity is a non-linear, open-world experience that pushes innovative and interactive storytelling to the next level. Over the course of the game, the player slowly pieces together the fate of the valley from fragmented memories of the people who made it their home. By finding and interacting with the traces of these lost lives, the player gradually learns about the story and relationships of the inhabitants, how they live, how they died. All of this is accomplished through revolutionary environmental storytelling, and what you see and what you hear in Rapture is just as important as what you do.
Awesome, thank you. That's actually a pretty good description summary for where we're headed. So I guess other kind of additional notes, it did say in there, this is developed by the Chinese Room, most notably, as they also mentioned, known for Dear Esther, which I think I did an episode on the first year of the podcast, so a couple of years ago. There's an old one if anyone wants to hear it. And then they also have another game called Little Orpheus, but really Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, I think, is sort of their big entry into games. So cool to be talking about it here. And then another note is Meryl Dandridge was the VA for Kate, the main character in this, and she actually was Marlene in the last.
I did not know that. Yeah, until I saw your notes. I was like, oh, wow, interesting.
Yeah, I read it halfway through playing, and then I heard it the whole time after, but before that I was just this is Kate, and then I was like, oh my god, it's Marlene. I guess last sort of background thing that is important is to get to know the characters. So this game has a lot of characters that you interact with. Some are bigger, who we hear from a lot, and other ones are people that you might only hear about in a couple stories. So a quick rundown of our characters is, our main character is Kate Collins. She's an American researcher who's married to Stephen. Then we've got Stephen Appleton. He's married to Kate. He's the son of Wendy, and I believe he is a scientist also of some sort, and he met Kate when he went to America to study or do work or something. Mm-hmm. And then we've got Wendy Boyles. This is Stephen's mom, and her husband, Eddie, had died a while ago. So he didn't die during this game. He's been dead for a while. We've got Frank Appleton. That's Wendy's brother and Stephen's uncle. And his wife, Mary, also has died, but she's died a bit more recently. It seems like in the last year or two, she had some sort of sickness that she recently-ish died from. And then you've got Lizzie Graves. This is Stephen's former fiance. And now she's married to a guy named Robert, Also, since Steven's left, she's had an injury where her legs, I think, got hurt, and so she has some mobility issues.
Yes.
And then Robert Graves, he's married to Lizzie. He's also sort of like the town drunk, and people don't really like him.
Yeah.
He sounds like an asshole.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then you've got Father Jeremy Wheeler. He's like the priest of their town. You've got Dr. Phil Wade. He is the medical doctor of their town. And then you've got, 10 to 15 other characters who might pop in here or there, or might even have almost a side story, so to speak, but they're not near as major as the rest of these people that have been mentioned.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So I guess last main thing is to try to describe how this game is played.
Yeah.
I think before we can talk about it, because it is fairly unique, I would say, in that. So
For sure.
How would you describe it? What was this like for you, kind of figuring it out?
It's definitely like to me, it's like the most walking simulator game like that you could possibly get, almost, because all you are literally doing is walking around and pressing buttons. So essentially, you're kind of dropped into the story, and you are just walking around. You can interact with items just by pressing X or clicking or whatever you're doing on whatever controller you're using. You just go around. You can press X to interact with doors and sometimes radios, and you can hear different bits of story as it pops up. And essentially, you're kind of getting all these story pieces at different. It's not always in the same timeline. It's not always in the same kind of order. So you're seeing things that happened way in the past or pretty present, and you're trying to piece together the story as you're going, which is pretty interesting. And I mean, a little confusing right off the bat, but you kind of get there eventually.
Yeah, I felt like once it clicked, I was like, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
You're just sort of dropped into the world, and you're like, here's this radio making noise. I guess I'll go click it.
Yeah.
And you do. And then you get like a couple sentences from Kate or something like that, and you're like, all right, that happened. Like, I guess I'll go explore.
Yeah, the game does a good job of leading the way for you, obviously. So essentially between like these things that you're interacting with, there's like a glowing ball of light, I guess. It's like an orb light kind of trail that you can kind of follow, and it'll kind of bring you from place to place, and it'll kind of stop at areas that might have something interesting or a story. And then this ball of light will also transform into kind of like glowing memories of the people that are having, like, that had an experience in this location. So you might see a conversation between two townsfolk, or but it might be something present or something way in the past. And it kind of leads you through the game that way. You don't have to follow it, but following it that way is probably the best bet for you.
Yeah, definitely. It does seem like the balls of light take you to like the biggest moments or most important stuff that the game like really, really wants you to know. Where it's like you said with the silhouette. So that's something that's interesting in this, is you don't actually see what any characters look like. You just see silhouettes of their conversations happening and like see the dialogue going back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not even no one has like a character. You don't know what anyone looks like. They're just a glowing kind of shape of a person, and they'll kind of move around through the space and interact with different things. And sometimes like the environment will be affected by them as well. Kind of like the memories are playing out live in front of you. Like sometimes you'll see like, the light, there's, I think, a paint spill that happens at one point, and you kind of see the light glowing, and it creates the paint spill on the ground, or something moves in equipment in a park or something, right? So it's interesting. Like, it definitely plays with like that time idea a little bit, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty unique.
Yeah.
Just all in all with it, and because of how the game is non-linear, like, I'm pretty sure you could like skip a lot of the game. Like, you could just, if you just like went AWOL and went somewhere and then somehow managed to get to the end, like you might be able to just skip a bunch of game, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, because this kind of happened to me a little bit at the very beginning. So because you're supposed to follow this ball of light through the opening sequence here, it would go in one direction. I'd be like, but there's houses on that side, so I'm going to go through all of the houses on that side first. And I ended up taking a crazy detour and hitting a bunch of story points and accidentally finishing the first part of the first character's story really early without really having any kind of sense that what I was doing. And shortly afterwards, I realized what I did, and I was like, oh, I don't know what just happened. So I actually replayed that first chapter again.
Oh, wow.
Because I made it all the way through Jeremy, who's the first character that we kind of interact with, but I went all the way through and his part, and I didn't piece together anything that made any kind of sense, and I feel like I also missed a lot of what the game wanted to tell me, but it still let me finish this chapter. So I think there's certain story points that you have to hit before you can finish a character's chapter. But I must have hit them, but I definitely was not registering the people or the places or the things that I was supposed to be important, because there was a lot of names and voices coming at you all at once. So I ended up replaying that first level again once I realized that I accidentally went too far forward and I did not know what was going on. So I replayed it, and then it was a lot better. And then I did the rest of the game all the way through again. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I feel like once you understood the cadence or whatever of what they wanted, it was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did the same thing. My first chapter, I just wandered around for a while, and some of the light bulb event triggers they have you do is interesting. Did you play? What did you play on your computer or
PS4? I played on my PS4. Yeah.
Okay, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
PS4, and so there's a thing where they have you use the motion control where you turn your controller sideways.
Yeah,
or
which was interesting.
That kind of, yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if I've played almost any games that do that, but at first, I was like, okay, you have to sort of line it up well, which it's not hard, but at the beginning of the game, I think I got to one of the bulb ports for that, and I was trying to turn it, and it wasn't working, and I was like, well, I guess I'll skip this part. And then I came back and I figured it out, but at first I was like, okay, how do I make it sideways the way they want me to or whatever.
I was trying to do the motion that the controller on the screen was giving me, and I think I just ended up not doing it correctly either, and I was tilting it back and forth, and I'm not sure what this is going to do, and I think I might have hit it accidentally, and then I kind of got the gist of it afterwards, but because it really doesn't, other than pressing X and tilting your controller, you don't really get any other kind of information about how to play. I get I saw online that you could press R2 to move a little faster, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I use that sometimes if I felt like there was long stretches that I had to pass or I was going over an area again. But typically I like to keep it very slow when I was moving in this game.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I mostly did go fast when I was going through an area I already went through. If I detoured real hard and I'm all right, I'm walking down this road all the way that I already did or whatever. But nice, that's cool. I feel like this sets a good stage for us. So, yeah. There's a couple ways, like we mentioned, conversations get sort of unlocked, whether tilting the controller, a radio, telephones ring sometimes, stuff like that.
I was going to say, sometimes you just stumble upon a thing, too. You might activate a little glowing ball by tilting the controller, but sometimes you just stumble into a memory, just by being in the vicinity of an area that had a memory there. So it's interesting. Sometimes they're activated by you, and then sometimes they're just random, and they just happen. And which is cool, but I never really knew which ones were supposed to be important, and I never really got the gist of which one was okay, were the ones that I tilted the controller more important or not. But also, there was no real save mechanic in this game. You had to kind of hit certain story points for the game to automatically save. So I always made sure that I think most of the time when you got a tilted controller one, it's saved for you. If I just happened to fall into a memory that happened to be nearby, I don't think it's saved, because I definitely turned off my game and got a couple conversations multiple times because I didn't really wait for the game to save properly.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I think you're right. It does seem like the tilt controller ones are what saved. Because I saw it say that, maybe partway through the game, I saw it say, saving after a tilt one, and I was like, okay, I'm going to watch for the tilt ones so that I don't have to, repeat stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like this is one of the most, games that just, told me as little as possible and were go do it. And I was like, okay, I guess so. And then... yeah, which is funny. I think, right when you start, they tell you click X to interact with something, and then they never say it again, or the first tilt they tell you to do it, but they don't tell you that otherwise, and it's just have it work out. And I'll ask this now. I feel like it's fitting. Did you know where to go for the ending, or did you have to look it up to figure out how to end the game?
How to end the game?
Ooh.
I mean, I feel like I got an ending. Can you, not end the game? I'm confused.
I bet you got the ending.
Okay. I'm
We'll
pretty sure I
talk
got
about
the
it when we
ending.
get there.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm interested.
No, if you didn't, you probably still got everything.
Okay.
I just was like, okay, how does it end? So then I looked up like, what do I do to finally end once
Gotcha.
I did everything?
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't want to explore forever. Like I think I've explored everything.
Right.
But
You
that's
got me
awesome.
intrigued.
Yeah. So yeah, the way all in all, I would say that this game, as we've mentioned, it's told in one sense. There's I think 6 character chapters, and it's the area of town you're in focuses on stories that relate to them most often, and we're gonna highlight a couple of those. But since the game gives you things that happen like apocalypse or rapture time, but then also things from months ago or weeks ago or years ago, we decided it would be best to divide it up between, I don't know, things with the townspeople and their lives, and then another section, which will come second, which is the apocalypse focus kind of thing. So I guess with that, we'll jump into our townsfolk. As Travis mentioned off top, the first person we do interact with is Father Jeremy. And you get a couple big things in Father Jeremy's story. The first kind of really big one is we find out that he helped Frank's wife, named Mary, inject an overdose of morphine while she was terminally ill to help end her suffering, which is a big deal. And also you get right away that this is like a small town of, I don't know, 50 people probably.
Yeah,
So like everyone's in each other's business, gossip, everyone knows everything. Like that's totally what this town is.
Totally.
And so, of course, this is huge in their town that the priest did this. And people are, of course, super divided on how they feel about it. On one hand, there are people who are like, this was a really loving, good thing to do. And other people are like, you are doing something you shouldn't do at all and it's wrong. So that's already some intrigue, I would say, as we begin this game.
Mm-hmm. Specifically with, so Wendy definitely has something to say about it. She's not pleased at all, especially given that he's supposed to be the priest for the town. And the interactions that they have together, especially early on, are very entertaining to me, where she makes like a side comment about, well, maybe people don't feel safe at your church. And because of the things that, like, obviously relating to Mary that he's done. And it was, I didn't initially come here for the drama, but I actually stayed for the drama when it came to this game, because I actually really liked the interpersonal stuff between all of them.
Yeah, me too. I was surprised how much I liked it as it went, because, at first you're like, coming for the apocalypse, and you're like, all right, what the hell's going on? But yeah, their lives were spicy, and so there's really a lot going on. Yeah, which is pretty wild. And through other memories with Jeremy, another big one that you get is Frank actually thanks Jeremy for helping his wife Mary die. And he was like, thank you for doing this. Like, I wanted her to be able to go. I wanted her to be able to be in peace also. I just wasn't able to do it. So thank you that, like, you could be here for her. So
yeah,
that's pretty wild of a thing. And also even that family dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Frank being fine with his wife going that this is a good thing, but then his sister being really pissed about it and hating the priest for it. Like, that's pretty wild. I guess the last really big thing that happens with Jeremy that's notable is when the apocalypse gets going, which we'll get into later, but Wendy actually comes back to him and apologizes as the world's, like, getting messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, sorry I've held this against you all this time. Like, you did do a good thing, and I'm wrong for, I was wrong for being shitty to you, kind of thing, which, I don't know, I thought was interesting and unexpected.
Yeah, definitely. I find, especially when you kind of start piecing together everyone's story, you can see that they all are going through something, and obviously they see what's happening. They know weird things are going on, right? Wendy specifically sees all her birds dying, right? And she knows something is wrong, and it's everyone kind of gets confronted with their own issues. Like you said, with Frank coming and thanking Jeremy, he couldn't be there for his wife, even though she asked him to be there at the end. He couldn't do it, and he went to the pub and got a drink instead because he couldn't do it. And so he thanks Jeremy for being there to do that for his wife. And everyone's kind of has to... It's interesting because everyone's story kind of ends with them putting a mirror up to their own actions. And they kind of realize, like, oh, maybe, I acted this way and I should have acted a different way, right? And when it comes to Jeremy, especially his last little section of his area, he's really distraught because he sees everything that's happening, and he is having pretty much a crisis of faith. He sees that, like, all these people are disappearing, all these terrible things are happening, and he is questioning, why is this happening? Like, he's questioning, why, God, is this happening? And it leads him back to his church, where you kind of see him, I don't know, I think he thinks he's having an interaction with God, and then he ends up dying and being taken by the light, I guess, if that's what I don't know exactly how people are exactly dying, and I don't think it's totally clear, but he pretty much becomes light and ascends to whatever, right? If it's an alien being or whatever it is. But his story, like, very dramatic, and especially when I hit it that first time by accident, I was like, oh, this is very dramatic, but I'm having a hard time feeling any kind of, like, emotional connection to him because I skipped through those stories a little too quickly and out of order too much, and I was too confused. And when I came back for it the second time, it hit a lot better because I could see, I think I got more story interactions with him and the different townsfolk, and I could see that, like, he was definitely a helping and caring person. He interacted with everyone, to be as helpful as he possibly could. And by the end of it, he's literally having a crisis of faith, essentially.
Yeah, no, that was a big a culmination, because right, it's something you do get on all of the interactions you have with him. Is like, he's all over town, like, in the past trying to help people, but also in the present you do see both of those, like you said. And then when I don't know, this chaos breaks loose, he does really have that, like, where are you, God? And then he has the interaction with the light, which is that's big. That was pretty wild. Yeah. That's awesome. So I guess that really wraps up Jeremy, which moves us on to Wendy, who showed up a little bit in the last story. And her background is, we find out that her husband, Eddie, had died pretty young, and he wasn't well after the war. So he, I think this is set in the 80s. Yeah,
I don't know what the setting, I'm not sure what war they're referring to. I don't know what this era would be, but I have no idea, so.
No, I don't either, because I'm like, World War II seems a little too old.
Yeah, so I'm just like, okay, it's very interesting. I have no idea, but you know what? I actually didn't mind that I didn't have a specific, like, it wasn't too specific about the era. I think it kind of helped, just make it more, I don't need it to be like a certain period piece, right? Like, it's more interesting if you can just tell a story and you can reflect on it in any time period, right?
No, yeah, true. It just felt like, oh, this is this small town and this is what's there.
Exactly.
So, you just kind of rolled with it. I was like, I know it's not present day because they have payphones, but like how old, like, whatever. But no. And so, his big thing is the big thing for Wendy is that her husband Eddie died young, so she's been a widow for quite some time. But then also that he wasn't doing well physically or, like, emotionally or any of that stuff after the war too. He just wasn't doing well. Yeah, I think her life has been challenging for sure. But we also see that when Stephen comes back from America, he comes with either his new wife or new girlfriend. I forget which at the time when they come back. But Kate. They do get married ultimately. I just can't remember if they're married.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But either way, yeah.
But Wendy disapproves right away and is like, well, Kate's not like us.
Yeah.
And Stephen takes offense right away, which is good.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, is it because she's black? And she's like, no, it's because she's American. Yeah. And Stephen's kind of like, yeah, right. Like, you kind of prejudiced. Like, That's what he shot back at her,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, and there's also like this. She's definitely got this like us versus them kind of mentality, right? So there is. I guess it's important to mention that there's like these, I don't know, towers, like observatory towers that are near the town, and Kate and Stephen are scientists working there, and Wendy likes to say that the people that work at the towers aren't like the regular town folk. They don't belong here. They kind of spend all their time over in that tower. And so she definitely is like, this woman is not from here. She doesn't belong here. You should be with Lizzie, which Lizzie is another character that we end up seeing more of later on. But yeah, she's definitely pushing to get Stephen back with his ex.
Yeah. She's really pushing that. It's like, she was your high school sweetheart or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you should be with her. She's better. She's like you. She's like us, sort of thing. And really has this almost I don't know, distrust of the scientist or something like that. Like they're trying to meddle with things that only God should know or something. Like weird kind of like this is generalizing, which isn't fair, but small town feel.
Oh, for sure, no.
Like thinking, small town thinking of like, no, we should only do things that our small town is like, and anything outside of that is not good.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of the attitude she gives off. Steven's, I think, also pushing is like, I'm one of those people too. Like, sure, I'm from this town, but like, I do research. I care about science. I'm not, this town isn't like the end of me or something.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I think Wendy's just, I actually very much, as frustrating as she is like early on, I actually really came to like Wendy quite a bit. She's just so no nonsense, and I think I find myself attracted to characters that are so no nonsense, and she just doesn't really put up with it. And so whenever there's the doctor's coming to her house to see like, hey, there's strange things happening, people are disappearing, blah blah blah, and Wendy's like, go bother someone else, like I'm totally fine. And she's pretty much, she loves watching birds, and so she's been collecting like all the dead birds that she's finding, which is sad, but especially because like she loves watching them and all the birds are gone. And essentially her story becomes her trying to find Stephen. Like, she's wanting answers for what's going on, and she knows that Stephen is in some way involved, and she ends up like on the search for Stephen for most of the time that you're with her.
Yeah, a lot of her is looking for Stephen, which, and I guess that's your overwhelming thing you get from her is that, like, she really cares about the things that she cares about, right? She cares a lot about her son. She cares about the birds enough that, like, it's not a weird person picking up the birds. It's I care about these, and I'm trying to, like, take care of them. Yeah, exactly. Like, to presumably, I don't know, bury them or something. Yeah. I don't know, but, like, she's interesting. And again, I think going through another character early on of like, okay, there's some, people being a mix, right? There's some good things and some bad things with them. I don't know what the end brings for them, right? That she's like, okay, I need to find my son. I need to do this. Yes. Like, that's her sort of ending. Father Jeremy's is calling out to God, like, whatever, like that sort of thing. And
exactly.
It's a pretty interesting journey to go on. Mm-hmm. Cool. I guess we'll move on to our last one I wanted to focus on. There are 3 more characters that do have chapters of their own, but those ones I would say are maybe a little smaller or more tie in with the apocalypse. Yes. So we'll save those for the apocalypse. But our last character, though, is Lizzie. So we learned this, I said this earlier, but we learned that after Stephen left, Lizzie has an accident and has mobility issues. She doesn't walk well. And has, I think, also kind of used this as a reason to stay in town. So I think that for a long time she had a reason. She was like someone who would be, I think, sort of like Stephen, not a scientist, but someone who wanted to go experience the world outside of the town to do more things. But then since she's been hurt, has kind of used it as, well, I mean, I'm just here and like this is where my life is. So I guess I'm just here, sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, she kind of ends up not because Stephen leaves. I think she kind of just resigns to the fact that, no, I think I'll just stay here. I don't know if she uses, I mean, she is kind of, I think there is an interaction that I remember her having with maybe Frank, where she straight up says that, like, maybe I've been using my leg as an excuse for not going and doing more, despite the fact that she actually runs an entire, like, campground area near the town. So she's got a lot going on, but I think she, not that she was wasted potential, but that she maybe had more ambitions than what the town could have possibly offered her. But then she kind of got stuck in a rut, especially with like kind of a not nice alcoholic husband and a bad leg. So
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that it was one of those things where I think she would very much so be someone who could feel like, life was going really well when I was like engaged to Steven, and then that didn't work, and then life passed me by.
Yeah.
I could see her really having that sort of sentiment. And you're right, because there's a talk with Frank at like
I think he's
the laundromat.
yes,
maybe
he's fixing a laundry machine for her.
And she says something like that, right? She says she has like an honest moment. She's like, well, sure, my leg is a problem, but I've learned to work with it. But maybe I'm using it as an excuse, and I should go out into the world and like be me for once.
Right, and I think it's also in a bit regards to her relationship with Robert, her husband, is that like, why is she sticking around, especially given that they aren't in a happy relationship, and she still loves him. But she's sticking around when it might be fear. It might be just, I guess fear of the unknown of going forward, right? But she doesn't want to upheave her entire life that she's built for herself. She wants to stick it out in the marriage, even though she's ultimately not really happy, which kind of gets when Steven comes back to town, it kind of causes a little bit more drama because then they start interacting again. So.
Yeah, her, and I guess that probably ends up becoming the new reason to stay in town. So, right, Steven comes back to town, and Wendy, of course, being Wendy, sets up a time to get a drink. Come on, you guys have known each other forever. I know you used to be engaged, but it's not weird. You should go to the bar together. It will be fine. And a little bit of sparks fly.
Yeah.
And you kind of have them kind of remember their, old love, so to speak. And I think, meanwhile, too, for Steven is, it seems like Kate is more dedicated to work and probably better at work as a scientist than he is.
Yeah.
And so she's, more dedicated doing that stuff more. And Steven's like, okay, cool, I'm calling it at my 40 or whatever. And she's like, well, I'm going to finish some stuff up and I'll come home later. And Steven's like, okay, I'm going to go hang out with Wendy.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't say it, but that's what he
Pretty
does.
much, yeah.
And then becomes his, like, secret girlfriend, essentially.
More or less. And there's a lot of scenes. They must have been together for quite a bit. I don't know the exact timeline, obviously, but like they've definitely been sneaking around for quite a long time. And I mean, I don't think they're very subtle about it either, because everyone talks in this town, like you said, right? So I'm sure everyone knows. And I mean, Kate knows. She's not oblivious to it. And I think she kind of gets mad at one point because she, says like, do you think I'm stupid and I didn't know that this was happening? But it's definitely interesting, how their whole relationship dynamics kind of work itself out.
Yeah. I think you're right that they've been sneaking around for quite a while, because enough that like there's a part where they have like a camper, essentially, right? That it's like, oh, this is where we meet to go have sex, which is like,
this is the hookup tent, essentially.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Which is so preposterous.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty wild. You're pretty in deep to sneaking around that you like have a secret camper somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all going, and I guess Lizzie's like big end for her story is we find out that she's pregnant at the time of the apocalypse, which is huge. And Steven tries to sneak her out before the quarantine, which we'll get into deeper in a little bit. But Steven kind of has this moment when shit's falling apart and he finds out that Lizzie's pregnant. He's like, all right, I've got to make things work for you.
Right.
Like he like becomes all in. I think before this, Steven has really been trying to live, quote unquote, with the best of both worlds.
Right,
like,
for sure.
Cool. I have Kate. I have Lizzie. They both are great for me in different ways. I'm not gonna commit to anything and just do what I want.
Right. For sure.
So yeah, notable.
Yes.
So okay. I would say, all in all, that's our main three characters. Now we'll just jump into the apocalypse, the big draw of the story. But again, there are a lot more, I guess, townsfolk stories to be told and all of that exist. If you haven't played this game, there are a lot more that you could go listen to and enjoy, and would recommend. There's just a lot there. If you liked hearing that gossip of sorts, there's more.
Yeah. It's funny because I grew up watching a lot of Coronation Street, which is like a BBC, evening soap opera that's been running for 60 years, and it's English, and it's definitely this. Like, the drama that happens in this game just kind of scratched that Coronation Street itch for me. And anyone who knows me that's listening to me is probably dying because I've talked about Coronation Street before in the past to them. And but it's like, oh, I love sci-fi. I also love Coronation Street, and this is kind of the best of both of those things, which is kind of hilarious.
No, that's perfect. It's funny. If I would have never thought that that's what this game was.
Yeah.
Like, before playing it, when I read it, I didn't expect something like that. But then getting it, I'm like, well, this is cool.
Yeah.
I liked it. Like, being able to do that, pretty cool. But yeah, I guess onward towards the apocalypse. So the apocalypse begins with Kate and Steven researching stars, and there's this intelligent light or light energy thing, these balls that we've talked about of light that kind of float around and stuff, that they call the pattern, and it infects the valley. So they're doing something in the research station, and somehow the light comes down, and then it just sort of takes over the valley, the town, the area that they're in. And they each actually get radiation burns from the light coming down into the research station with them. And other characters comment on it throughout. For Steven, as he's going around the town, people are like, your face is burned. What happened? Like, pretty intense scene for them. And so after this, Kate and Steven argue about what happened and what they should do. Steven runs into town. He wants to warn everyone. He wants to figure out what's happening. Like, are these people okay? And Kate goes the opposite way. She locks herself in the observatory and is like, I need to solve this. If I can figure out what's going on, perhaps I can stop it. So they both react pretty differently to this situation.
Yeah, and Steven, when he comes to the town, he acts like a crazy person. Like, he's going to town and he's trying to figure out what is going on. And we can see Steven throughout the town, seeing different things and kind of going all over the place, and he's doing crazy things like painting lines, and Father Jeremy's telling him, like, you can't paint all over people's houses, and we see how Steven's reacting to it, and then through all of the radio clips that you can hear, so you'll hear like radio clips throughout the game, and if you go up to the radio and press the button, you'll get pieces of Kate's story. So essentially the different observations and things that she's seeing while she's doing her research within the observatory, and kind of try to piece together the stuff that she is seeing and she's interacting with, because we don't get we get all of Kate's stuff through these radio clips. So you kind of see both sides of it as you're progressing through the game.
Yeah, you get that's a great point. Is you do get both of them throughout, because Steven shows up in most stories at least once, if not multiple times. Like, Steven, you like see him through everything, but then you also hear Kate through all of everything. So you know that both of them are trying to do their work in their own ways, I guess. And yeah, Steven's like, the light, this thing happened, and people are like, what are you talking about? He's like, you don't get it? The light, I gotta paint, I gotta, whatever.
And he's running around saying, I'm infected, don't get near me. And people are like, what are you talking about? He's like, the pattern, and blah, blah, blah. And he just says a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, Steven, I know what you're saying, but please explain it to poor, like, Frank, who has no clue what you're saying right now.
Right, yeah. And a lot of things go in with that. Is no one gets why he's freaking out. He's not communicating in a way that people can hear him.
Yeah, not at all.
And shit gets more real, right? Yeah. All the birds die. There are a couple people in town who go missing, and they're like, where did this person go? And Steven's like, it's the pattern. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's like the pattern took him. Like,
Yeah, and then he just like runs away and mumbles to himself. Like, they have no idea what he's doing. So
And it's clear after a little while that we've reached the point of no return. Mm-hmm. This is bad. Bad stuff keeps mounting. And so Stephen calls his friend named Clive, who works for the Emergency Measures Committee, and convince him to set up a quarantine, which I get the idea that it's maybe like their FEMA or something.
Yeah, I'm assuming. So, at least some sort of military or governmental body that can do that kind of stuff. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it seemed like it was something like fairly official, like not just like, your local government. Yeah. It seemed a little bigger.
Yeah.
And I guess Stephen, being someone who works at the observatory, like, is a scientist, he probably knows people like that and has that sort of sway.
Yeah.
That's like, you've got to quarantine our town, something's going on. Like, and so he gets this quarantine set up. And so you interact with the quarantine a couple times as you're traveling the town. Mm-hmm. Is there are roads that are actually closed. There's like police cars in front of them. There's barriers, stuff like that. And as the quarantine's like getting set up, you hear different people having stories of like people who were trying to sneak out before the quarantine happened. Mm-hmm. Or they're like, oh, they don't know about this back road or any of that sort of stuff. So it's pretty eerie.
Yeah.
Even in that feel of like the quarantine rolling in.
Yeah, for sure. It's super. There's a lot of panic and a lot of weirdness going on, and no one really knows what's happening. And they're saying it's the flu. Like, and you've got the doctor going around saying that he's never seen a flu like this before. Like, this is not the flu. People aren't buying it, essentially. But that makes it all the more scary, right? Because if the doctor's mm-hmm. saying, I don't know what this is, but it's definitely not the flu, but people are disappearing. People are getting nosebleeds and headaches. And it's, they have reason to be scared. And, justifiably so. It's, who knows what's going on, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And not that our experience last year was the same as this, but this definitely creeped me out a lot more.
It touches that part of your brain that's like, oh gosh, quarantine. Don't like that word anymore.
No. Yeah, before that was a word in movies.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That definitely made it feel creepy. I was like, I 100% understand your feelings now.
Oh, yeah.
Like before, I think I would like sort of get it, but this time around, I was like, if that happened, I'd be freaking out and trying to find a secret way out also that they don't, like the road they don't know about.
Yeah, literally. I think probably having the experience that we've had over the last year and a half has made us appreciate this aspect of this game a little bit more than if, let's say, I would have played it 2 years ago. Would I have, reacted the same way? Maybe not, but it's definitely like hits a different part of your brain now that you've actually kind of lived through something not like this, but like at least, kind of.
No, yeah. It felt way more relatable in an uncomfortable way.
Yes.
I agree. I'm glad we played it when we did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also glad we didn't play it like a year ago or 6 months ago, because I think I would have freaked out.
That probably would have made it way worse. Totally.
I'm glad that like in playing it now that our countries have vaccines rolling out and things are hopefully looking better, kind of thing. Yeah. But oh man, yeah, that was pretty wild. Mm-hmm. So okay, so quarantine gets set up. They think that can work out, but the pattern evolves.
Yes.
And Stephen recognizes it and realizes that it's learned how to travel through the phone line. So it's not as simple as the light interacted with me, and if I interact with other people, the light, interacts off of me into them, or, it's going around on its own and it interacts with people. He realizes, oh my God, I can go through the phones, which... holy shit. And so he calls Clive again and is like, cut the phone lines. Like, we have to keep it in the valley. We can't let this get out. And fortunately, they do get them cut just in time. Mm-hmm. And Stephen had heard, before this had happened, he'd heard random calls dialed from the light to different, like, places.
Right.
So it was, like, actively happening, but they, cut the lines before it got outside of the town. And they make it. That's big. And then he realizes again the pattern just keeps adapting. It's growing. It's getting better. And he says, I know what we have to do. Mm-hmm. And this sucks because I'm here also. But you've got to bomb this town.
Yep.
You need to get rid of this virus. You have to kill us all. And he calls Clive, and they have an intense conversation. Clive's family lives in that town, and Stephen's like, don't be a bitch,
Yeah.
essentially. Like, I'm gonna die too, but you have to do this. Like, if you don't, it may kill everyone. Which, holy shit, that was intense.
Yeah, like I can't imagine, like, you're just supposed to take that at face value. You know what I mean? Like, to be in Clive's shoes, I don't know what I would be able to do. You know, like I don't know how you're supposed to take that information and you know, you don't see, or you're not there to witness anything. You're just kind of taking it at face value over the phone, but it's an insane thing to kind of think that you have to do. But you know, things are getting worse. You know, it's adapting. It tries to go through the phone lines, and then I'm assuming it tried to get through the birds, and that's why all the birds died.
That would make sense.
I think that's what I kind of gathered was it tried the birds, and the birds, it didn't work. And then I guess, you know, you can see how things are progressing, and they're progressing very quickly, and people are disappearing very quickly, and people are falling ill very quickly. And, you know, trying to contain it in this, you know, small town in the middle of nowhere, if you can bomb it, I guess it's the only way to really stop it, right? But it's just an insane thing to think that you have to, like, make that judgment call.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And this whole time is pretty quick. The idea I got is it seems like it's, like, been a week or something. Like,
it seems like it's moving fast, because I don't feel like there's enough time for people to really react and understand. I think things are changing too quickly, because it felt like everyone was always discovering something new. Was, you know, I think for people, I think they would have realized if it was too stretched out of a period of time, people would have, I think their behaviors would have changed. And I think if given how, like, quickly things kind of were happening, it was like, oh, this person disappeared, that's weird. Oh, that person disappeared, that's weird. Instead of, you know, if it was a week of that, you'd be like, okay, something's happening, we need to, like, get out of here. And I think the ones who survive the longest get to that point, but I don't think it's a very long period of time. It might be a week. You know what I mean? It might move pretty quickly. I mean, maybe there might have been hints of it in Kate's things, that she definitely lost track of time, but it might have only been a couple weeks, if that.
Yeah, it seems like, and for Kate too, it seems like being in the observatory, she maybe lasted the longest out of everyone.
Yeah, I think she loses kind of track of time too. It just, like, you know, in her books and just doing whatever she can do, right? So,
right, which, like, is, yeah, it's really something. It goes so fast, because in the beginning it's sort of some panic, but also, like, oh, trust the authorities, they know what they're doing.
mm-hmm.
And then, like, progressively gets more panicky. But yeah, you're right, I don't think it could be too long, because, like, that panic would overboil, and people got there a little bit near the end, but
yeah, I think people wouldn't be willing to make the choices that they made if, like, time would have had to have passed for, let's say, Lizzie to abandon her camp and decide to leave, right? Like, to know that something bad is going to happen, or, you know, I think for people to reach the end of their stories where they essentially had to, you know, come to terms with their own issues, enough time would have happened, and enough, you know, fear and, like, worry that the end is coming would have to have taken place. But I think people would have, if too much time would have passed, people probably would have started realizing, like, certain things, what not to do. I don't think people are as, not dumb, but I think the townsfolk in this game definitely didn't react, like, quick enough. But that's because I think things were changing so quickly that they really didn't have time to process everything, right?
Yeah, it seemed like it was really quick, because, like, the two things I remember with the townspeople that were, like, big for them was, like, they all gathered at the church at one point to try to figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it seemed like a bunch of them gathered at Lizzie's camp.
Yes.
And like, by then it was, like, I think that was the end of the people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it lasted too long.
No, for sure.
For them. So, yeah, Steven says bomb. You gotta bomb us,
mm-hmm.
because the pattern won't have a host. It hosts on people, you know, like you said, it probably tried to host on the birds. It's trying with the phones. Like, if nothing's here, it will work. And so Clive agrees. He's like, all right, fine. You know, you're right, I guess. Like, I don't want to do this, but you're right. And Steven gets confronted by Frank, actually, because Frank likes to mess around with radios.
Yeah.
And so he actually overhears this conversation.
Yes.
And so he tries to fight Steven, which is pretty wild. And then ultimately the bombs are dropped and kill everyone, which is pretty crazy. Like, when the animation for this, when you, like, walk out and you look at the sky, and you see it happen.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like that was, oh man, like you like felt it.
Yeah, and a lot of the character endings will end with the bombing happening, because it really is the end of their life and their story, and it's a lot. Like this game is beautiful, and it, like, you can see, I can visualize the one, especially specifically Frank's ending, where he's at the top of like this windmill hill, and he's setting off like an air raid siren because he knows what's coming, and he's trying to warn people so that they can, hide or seek cover or something. And if you just pan the camera up, and you can see all the streaks across the sky, and the end of Wendy's story, she hears the planes coming, and she starts screaming Eddie's name, and she knows something is happening, and she thinks the planes are here, and Lizzie's on the phone trying to leave a message for Steven, and she hears the planes too, and then everyone just kind of evaporates after that, right? It's super, super dark and super dramatic and very effective.
Oh, so effective. Yeah. Like for Wendy's, like, right, I think her husband was in the Air Force, right? So she's calling for him, like, the planes are here to save us, and you're like, oh, fuck. No, they're not. And for Lizzie, you like feel bad that Steven stands her up in the end. That she's like calling him and is like, well, I guess I have to go for like me and the baby. You're not here yet, and it's like you're not gonna make it either. Like, oh man, it's
even like
it's pretty brutal.
Oh yeah, and there's even like there's kind of a little twist part to the end of Lizzie's story where you kind of think you're getting towards the end of Lizzie's story, but then in reality, it's Rachel, which is like the 16-year-old girl that has been around Lizzie's story at her camp. And her story ends up, she's the 16-year-old girl pretty much, kind of helping keep this camp running and keeping everyone safe inside of their little like gathering hall, main hall area of their campground. And she's, a baby was abandoned, and she's kind of stuck holding it and trying to soothe it to sleep. And as the bombs are dropped, you see all of the people that are in this main hall slowly start to kind of dissipate into light, and you realize that like this was when everyone kind of went, and this was the end of all of the townsfolk essentially. It's when the bomb drops, and it's very dark, and it's super sad, and very moving.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was so moving, because as you go through that hall, I guess, or whatever, like the cafe hall or whatever, and you just see each like person's silhouette go. You're like, oh yeah, this is it's so heavy. So the bombs drop, they kill everyone, but Steven hides in a bunker.
Yes.
So he does this. That's why he chose to stand up Lizzie, because he said, I will hide in this bunker because, I'll tell everyone, I'll tell you that everyone's dead, then I'll kill myself, and, we'll be good. And he radios Clive, and he gets no response. He keeps, like, radioing out, and there's nothing there. So the pattern has seemingly got out. Bombing didn't help. The pattern's presumably infecting the earth. Maybe everyone's dead.
Yeah. Super dark. Again. It's like, oy. And then, so he's essentially like doused himself in gasoline and is going to light a fire, like light a match or a lighter or something and he's fighting with the pattern, and he's saying, you won't get me, you won't get me. And at the very last moment, right before he is about to do it, and he's kind of fighting with the pattern, he sees Kate kind of in the light, and whether intentional or not, the lighter drops and it engulfs him in flames, and the light takes him. Either the light takes him or he passes away. I'm not entirely sure. It's left kind of ambiguous, but once again, it's like this beautiful scene where all the light kind of becomes the flame at the same time, and dissipates into the slow transition to Kate's final chapter, essentially.
Yeah, that again was a wild one, with seeing the light on the ground. You could see where all the gasoline had spilled, and you see it like spread out, and you see it. Oh wow, yeah. Again, fully powerful. And then, like you say, we get finally to Kate's chapter to wind us down, and you basically go through the observatory, like it's a gated area, and you go from observatory tower to observatory tower till you finally get to the last one. And you get more in-depth or longer versions of some of her findings.
Yeah.
So before, as Travis mentioned, you get them a lot in like phone calls or on the radio, like little, 2 sentences about like, here's what I've learned about the pattern. But here you get a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not even sure exactly what happened at the end, to be honest. She's definitely like the last one standing, and either she willingly joins with the pattern or they move on together. She may be the last thing alive on this planet, even. Like, I'm not entirely sure, but I think she ultimately ends up seeing it as like everyone's happy now, which is interesting. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think you're right that she's maybe the last one it took, because she's like, Father Jeremy's with God now. Frank and Mary are together.
Yeah.
Lizzie and Steven are happy.
Right.
And I have you, the light.
Yeah, she's just happy being with the pattern, like get married to the pattern, I guess.
Yeah, almost. And then it like she's the last one standing and it takes her? I don't know.
Yeah, it may take her, it may join with her. It's left very ambiguous at the end, which I mean I do like.
No, I like that too. Also, this made me remember a story that Steven tells near the end of the game that I liked a lot, which was about his dad finding a fox. And so he says, when I was a kid, my dad found this fox that was really hurt. It sounded like it couldn't walk. Maybe it got hit by a car or something. Like, it was injured pretty badly. And so his dad, being compassionate, like, took it and put it in their shed and would go out and feed it, and even developed a, kind of good relationship with this fox. It sort of recognized him as its caretaker. That had gone on. It seemed like for a few days, not like a super long time. But then Steven as a kid was like, well, I want to see the fox. I want to like go get to feed it. Like, this is kind of cool. And he went out to try to feed it and got bit by the fox. And his dad was upset that Steven did that. He went out, he kills the fox, and then later Steven sees his dad like crying about it, and he's like, Dad, what's like wrong, kind of thing. And he's like, the fox didn't know any better. It didn't mean to hurt you, but I was trying to make like its end better, but it couldn't be around anymore. And Steven kind of comes to recognize that he views the pattern sort of like this fox.
Exactly.
That it's not meaning to cause havoc on people. It doesn't mean to hurt them, but nonetheless it is. Right. Kind of thing. And for being just like a little vignette story about his dad, oh man, I thought it was really powerful.
Oh yeah, it was super effective. It was so good. Great way to like give a nice metaphor to the end of this entire story, where you can almost like rationalize with the pattern. Like, it kind of like humanizes the pattern, which is a weird thing to say, but also like you realize it's not viciously trying to do this. It is just a being that doesn't know any better. And I do like that idea more than, here's this evil alien that came to Earth to kill everyone. It's a much better twist, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that the pattern, like, it has some agency, but it's not choosing evil. It's not led by evil or something like that. Instead, it's like, it's this bad thing that happened and affected everyone horribly. Yeah. And probably ruined the world and ended it.
Yeah, and like Kate is seeing there that she kind of feels like it's just trying to connect. It's just trying to make connections, and she ultimately ends up seeing it as like, oh, it just wanted to make everyone happy by bringing them all together again by killing them. But I guess like, I can see she might have gone a little too far with the idea that like, oh, now everyone's together again, happy ending. But I can at least understand the idea that like it doesn't know any better and it's just trying to connect with another living being, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm with you there too. I think I agree with the understanding of what's going on. I don't agree with Kate and what she believes about it.
And she's maybe too close to it, obviously. Like, like living and breathing in these observatory towers for days or weeks on end. She probably it becomes her all-consuming life that like ultimately she's like, oh, I'm happy for Steven and Lizzie to be together, because she kind of not that her humanity goes away, but at least she becomes a little bit more detached from it, right? And this becomes her all-consuming life, and she, I think, ultimately does understand the pattern, and so that's why she can kind of let go of like her humanity a little bit, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect way to describe that. So that is, I guess, really by and far the recap of the game. That is how it goes. So I guess from here we'll move into some general thoughts, just things that didn't really come up in our discussion, but we thought were worth talking about. We've talked about this a little bit, but one thing I want to bring up is I think that this game really does a great job of mixing the apocalypse and the mundane. We've talked about it, but just experiencing it. So, we parsed it out for you. For you, if you play this game, every other interaction could be different. You could get apocalypse, then you could get 3 mundane, and then back to apocalypse. Like, it could totally go that way. And, moment by moment, you weren't always sure what was going or whether you liked it, but being at the end of the tunnel now, oh man,
Yeah.
I really liked it, and it really stood out well. So, like, they really killed it here. They did a great job.
For sure.
Another thing, which surprisingly we haven't talked about, is I think the voice acting in this game is really good, and I think the music is really good. The score is like perfect.
Yeah.
It's like great. Like I feel like I probably need to start listening to this while I'm working or something.
Yeah.
Like, listening to the Spotify playlist, because like, oh man, it's so powerful. And with like there's a lot of like I don't even know how to exactly describe it.
Yeah,
but,
it's like there is moments where it's very like almost like angelic-y kind of chorusy, churchy kind of vibe, but it's very effective. It's like the music is used so, even the sound design in this game is just so good, because you hear things and there's just noises, and there's so many little details in this game in terms of like how they use the music and the sound. It is, obviously a lot about the light, but it is a lot about the sound too. Like you'll sometimes hear the voice of the character inside of that ball of light at the same time, and they do amazing things with the visuals, but the sound really needs to get recognized too for like how good it is, right? And like you said, the voice acting, the acting is amazing. I like every single person was incredibly believable. I had no issue believing anyone in this game. Everyone was great. Like I felt like these were real conversations that real people could have had, and just their reactions to things, it didn't seem overly dramatic. It was like the perfect level of like you said, mundane, and like also the apocalypse kind of crazy, but like the acting also reflected that too.
Yeah, it did. It didn't ever feel like you were in a video game or they were a character.
Yeah,
which is phenomenal. Yeah, I think like you said with the music, it did feel like churchy. Like I wanted to say hymns.
Yeah,
but,
a little bit.
But almost like somber
yes.
hymns or something like or the almost old-timey, like it almost sounds like singing in like the 1800s or something.
Yeah. For sure.
Someone who knows music would describe it far better than I, but like it's really something, especially like when you like after the bombs fall and you leave Lizzie's camp and you get that like chorus of things that just sound like it's like a dedication to the dead.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
it's really good.
Oh man, like it was so effective.
Yeah.
Like they really used their like parts, so it was like, okay, we're making a game, it's a walking sim, you can do like 2 or 3 things, it's pretty limited in that, but we're gonna amp this other stuff that we can do that you are immersed in,
right,
all the way up, like the sound design, like you said, like the music, like the voice acting, like we're going all in there, because that stuff is gonna land as hard as it can, because it needs to. And I think they were aligned right. Like that was totally a good move.
I wonder if this would be like an effective VR game. Like,
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like if this was in like just to like even more immerse you in the world, and especially with how how interesting like the light and the sound play against each other, and how they do different things with the noises and the music. I wonder how like if like a VR version of this game would actually be very cool. And like I don't have a VR thing. I don't play any VR, but like the idea of like being in the world, I that's very interesting to me.
That is. I don't have VR either. I've like done it before, and it was really immersive doing dumb things. I can't even imagine what it would be like doing this.
It'd be a super easy thing to do. Like, I mean, you're just pressing buttons in this game, right? And watching scenes play out, right? It can't be that hard, but like I think when I was near the end of it, I was like, this would be an interesting VR game, just especially in those like glowing zones between chapters where it's all light and it's all dark, but you have like little glowing lights paths kind of leading you to the next area. Those would just probably be like just gorgeous to look at and to kind of be inside of.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't. Yeah, because you know what, you could just have it be like shake your controller right, or like press the button on the controller for this thing.
Yeah.
Like that does seem like it could be done. Now I'm curious as if there are any walking sims like in VR at all, because if there's not, like this should be done.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, and if you really wanted to be interactive, I guess you could like make me open the door, I guess, you know, like I'll do the motion to open the door, but like honestly you don't even need to do that. I just kind of like the idea of being in a headset with this on instead of watching it on a TV.
Yeah, no, and like the scenery is like really beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Again, they did a great job at this. Like something when I played Dear Esther that I commented on was that one's pretty Britishy, naturey, but it's a little more it's more green.
Okay.
And I was like, this feels like this should be like an ad for a national park.
Yeah.
Like it's like so beautiful. And this one I think does it, except for a small town. Like walking through the farm, it felt very like you were at a farm, like how everything looked. Like it was like, yeah, that registers. I can only imagine like the sensory overload you would get doing it with VR in like a really good way.
Yeah.
Man, someone needs to do this.
Yeah.
This needs to be on VR.
Do it, please. I'll play this again.
Oh, I would 100% play this again on VR.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, I really want that now. I really hope that exists. Like, they make that happen. That would be really cool. One thing I did find frustrating in this game, I do think, though, the more we've talked, I liked this game before talking about it, and as we're talking about it, my enjoyment of it is going up. So I feel like that's showing how effective their game is. But one thing I didn't like was the directions were a little confusing as to where you were going. So I definitely spent some time getting lost, which might not be the game's fault. That might be mine. Like, I'm not ready to blame it on them, but that was a difficulty I had at points before I like figured out, okay, I need to use the maps and blah, blah, blah. But for a little bit, I just wandered around, you know, going wherever the fuck without direction. And that was like a little frustrating. And then I figured out and it was okay, but I wish maybe I would have got a little more hand holding.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
I'm glad I'm not the only
because
one.
like I said, I got lost too, and I kind of did my own thing at the beginning, and I think maybe a smidge more direction at the very beginning of the game to kind of give me a sense of how I need to go about playing it, maybe. But I guess like you could discover the story at whatever pace you want, but I guess when it's super early, you didn't really have an idea as to which way you should be going. So, you know, I think you're right about that, though, that like maybe a little bit more guidance at the beginning would have been nice. And yeah, like I think that's you're spot on with that, at least in terms of like, you know, give me some direction. And so I'm not as aimless, because it's already confusing to kind of piece together who's who. And I made a point of like turning on subtitles because at least I would know who's speaking. Because early on, like you don't have character models, and everyone's just a glowing kind of form of light. So you don't really know who's who, and you might not know unless you have the subtitles on. So it can be a lot all at once at the very beginning. And like, yeah, you get into it eventually, but yeah, I do agree that it does feel a little aimless, and I did feel like I was missing out on certain things if I didn't go through every room and every door and every, you know, nook and cranny of the village. And then I realized very quickly that there was no way I was going to be able to do that and realistically like finish this game in a timely manner if I'm like gonna, you know, grid this whole town out and go square by square until I can make sure I see everything, right? Like that's a bit too much. And I do feel like I did miss on, like I know I definitely didn't see everything, and there's definitely story points that I would like to see, but I don't know if it's enough for me to go back into it and just walk around at a slow pace forever to find them all.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I wonder if it's just, like we've been saying, if there was maybe a little more hand-holding in the beginning. Because I would wonder, without that, I wonder how many people have abandoned this game in that first chapter.
Right.
Like, if you would have just given a little more hand-holding in the beginning. Like, if I didn't have plans to podcast on this, I can't guarantee that I would have gone all the way through.
Right.
I might have got stuck in that first chapter, which would have been a major disappointment.
Right.
I'm really glad that, we had this set up to play for it and to go for it. And I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out. Because maybe if I didn't have that extra motivation, it might have just stopped there, which would be a shame because there's a lot that's worth seeing. Like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I would have appreciated a little hand-holding, even for just chapter 1. If they would have just made it pretty clear, like, okay, you're on your own,
right.
You get it now.
Yeah.
Like, we did these couple things, you're an adult. Like, I'm fine with them telling me that, but I would, even a little bit would have been helpful. Or if it's clear if you're lost, like, if they just... The light did come to you sometimes,
yes,
but
maybe a little bit more frequently.
Yeah, something like that. But those are, I guess, my main general thoughts on the game that we hadn't hit up. Do you have other stuff that stood out to you that we haven't talked about?
Well, I do want to say I very much agree with you that I liked this game, but discussing it with you has made me like it even more. Like, I think the more I'm talking about it and the more I'm going over the themes and the ideas and what this game is putting out, I'm liking it even more so. And like almost to the point where do I want to go back and see more story bits that I might have missed? Like it's interesting because I normally don't have that feeling, but I like the idea that this discussion is actually making me more like this game even more so, right? So that's nice. I do like that you said that because I very much agree. And then otherwise, like, yeah, we covered a lot of stuff. Like the visuals and the sound and the voice acting are great. There were some moments that like were extremely like dark and difficult and emotionally moving for me. The one that I think gets me the most is it's a very early scene where Father Jeremy's going into a house and he finds a woman named Amanda and she's sitting on a couch crying, and she had 2 boys with her and her husband, and she is on the couch crying, and Jeremy's like, what's going on? What's wrong? She's like, she's saying they had these nosebleeds and blah, 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 and the boys were tired, and her husband took the boys upstairs to go sleep, and he never came back down, and it was 6 hours that she's been sitting there too afraid to go upstairs. And something about that just hit me right in the gut. I was just completely broke me. And I was like, wow, like, and this was early in the game, and I was like, this is dark, but this is also incredibly emotional. And for the game to kind of give me that right off the bat, I was like shocked, and it was just very, very good. And then the game continues to deliver on those super emotional moments all the way through. Even if you don't know a character right away, and even like in small little things, like I don't think we really even see Amanda again, but it was more of a reflection on Jeremy, about like how, he's helpful and he's there for all the townsfolk. But it's just, I don't know, this game does a really, really good job of making you feel things with the way it designs its voice acting and its sound and its gameplay and the visuals, and it's just really, really good. I don't have much, like, all in all, the game is great as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know if I have any other specific thoughts to give.
No, that's great. That like you said too. I mean, I think they really put you in a spot where you could, I don't know, feel and understand the things people were going through. Like if you're Amanda, you're like, I don't know if I can bring myself to go up there.
Yeah.
They've been gone so long. Like, what if I go and they're not there? Like, if I go up there, that's going to confirm that. And
right.
I don't think I can take that. So I'll just stay here because maybe he'll come down soon.
Exactly.
Or
like, it's just devastating. It's absolutely devastating.
Or for, Lizzie on the phone, leaving that final message for Steven, like, he'll find, he was gonna come. I guess maybe finally won't. I guess I got to do what's best for me and the baby.
Yeah.
Like, I feel you, like, but also like wanting to hold out as long as you could, because like maybe he'll come, or
right.
And any of the other people along the way, like, oh man, you just really feel for them.
Yeah. It's just nuts.
Which is, yeah, it's nuts for, again, that you know their voices,
yeah,
and you've seen their silhouettes or whatever. Like, man,
yeah,
I don't know how they did that.
Yeah,
like,
it's just a testament to the writing and to the acting. Like it worked on both parts. Sometimes the acting can be great, but the writing falls flat, or the writing is falling flat, and the acting is they're doing what they can with what they were given. But in this case, both work like really, really well to make you care about someone that you've just met. Because it's that effective at being realistic enough in how these characters are acting and being portrayed. So
yeah, and like you mentioned, I don't think Amanda did come up either.
I don't think so. I think she was, maybe that was it. Maybe there was one other scene with her trying to leave with her husband, and that might have been it. But
yeah,
honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, not that I can remember. And I think that's pretty interesting too, is that you have all these characters, like we talked about the important, or main ones, but like everyone was still a person, even when they were small and periphery and things like that, which,
yeah, like, did those people find their dog? I don't know. There's people looking for a dog for a while, and I don't think they found their dog, which, I mean, but once again, I think there was even a side plot with like a couple that left their baby, but then also they got in an accident with, I think, Robert, and like there's so much drama and stuff that unfolds in there, and it's not directly related to the main plot, but once again, I was kind of living for it. So
yeah. And Rachel's parents, like,
yes,
had stuff where like they were maybe going to try to leave town without her, and she was staying at the camp because something was going on.
And Rachel's in love with this other kid, and then they wanted to run away to Spain together, but then they couldn't because she was stuck with the baby of the other two people that she couldn't just leave. Just drama.
No, yeah. So much.
Yeah.
It's really something.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
I guess I feel good there. Yeah. Do you want to move on to listener feedback?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Okay. I can grab this first one. Okay. This is from Daniel on Twitter, who says, I think it's another game/story that needs a physical release. It's a great/original way to tell a story and a fantastic soundtrack. And I'm glad you gave it a shot and most likely enjoyed it. Yes. No, that's spot on.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it already, but that soundtrack, oh man, that
really, really good.
Upper tier. Really, really good.
Yeah. This next one's from Kyle on Twitter, and says, my first walking sim courtesy of PS Plus back in the day. It wowed me by the graphics, and spent ages piecing together the story as I explored the world in a random order. Great experience. Totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Spot on. I agree as well. Kevin on Twitter says, despite being a walking simulator, it's really effective and resonant experience. The pieces of the story are meticulously spread out, and when they all come into focus at the end, the gravity of everything is huge. Also, best soundtrack ever. The people who write in are feeling the same stuff we are, which is cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then Jambags on Twitter says, a truly wonderful experience. Hard agree. Jambags.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. That's awesome. That's great. I'm glad to hear that other people enjoyed this game as much as we did, which is cool. So, yeah, I guess that wraps up Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Again, as we've mentioned, if you have somehow listened to this but not played it, I would still recommend picking it up. There are lots of side stories we didn't talk about, and I'm sure even stuff we missed that could be important that we didn't get in the recap, like just because of the way it is.
Even if we spoiled something, I think just experiencing it is a different thing than just reading about it, right? So. or hearing
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, I guess what we want to do lastly though is I want to shift gears to talk more about cutscenes and let Travis tell us kind of further about it and all of that. So yeah, I guess first up, if someone doesn't know what cutscenes is, what's it about? What's your show?
Yeah, so Cutscenes is a seasonal podcast. We have 2 seasons out so far, and we're working on the 3rd. We essentially will do, maybe 10 episodes a season or so and discuss video game movies and TV, different adaptations. Even if it's adjacent, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we'll do like direct adaptations, and sometimes we'll do things that are, about or, close to the topic of video games, or at least video game themes. And yeah, we pretty much will watch them. I mean, a lot of these movies are typically bad movies. I think generally speaking, most people think they're bad. But, some of them hold up and some of them surprise me. And me and my 2 friends, Katie Lesperance and Jacob McCourt, both have been on this podcast as well. And we do it together. And yeah, we just have a really great time. We've got different segments. Jacob usually quizzes me and Katie at the end of it with, random things, and we'll do a little speed, like hot potato style overview of the plot at the beginning before we get into the discussion of the movie. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It gives me an excuse to hang out with my 2 best friends, which is great, and then also kind of watch some garbage movies that I have either never seen or haven't seen in a very long time. So
that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely full of fun segments. Yeah. I look forward to all of them.
Sometimes they're a complete disaster. So, and mostly it's my fault, I'm sure. So
the one where someone thought The Shining was like a comedy or something.
Oh my God, here we go.
That was one of my favorite things I've ever heard. That was incredible.
Oh yeah. Some of those Metacritic scores, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
That's like the greatest thing ever. But cool.
Yeah.
No, thanks for telling us about the podcast.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Yeah, as you said, you've gone for 2 seasons. You've gotten to cover some things. Mm-hmm. What have been some of your favorite movies that you've gotten to talk about so far?
Let's see. I mentioned earlier, I loved the newest Mortal Kombat. That movie was great. That was a great movie, and I was very surprised and happy that it was great. I want more of that. I think the big one for me though is honestly the old Super Mario movie. it's generally speaking, it's known to be terrible, but honestly, I loved it. And and Jacob will fight me and Katie on this Katie will say I'm not saying it's a good movie, and I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of a good movie, but I loved it, and it was so fun, and it's so stupid, but it's fun, and it makes sense essentially, and it's an interesting way to adapt these characters into kind of like a trying to be realistic setting. And I don't care how it's Mario. I don't care how accurate it is, but, it was so much fun, and I don't think I realized I never had seen it before. But the idea that everyone talked about how garbage this movie was, and I was expecting to go in I think maybe my expectations were super low that I was surprised, but I think people are slowly starting to come around to the idea that this is actually like an underrated gem, and I'm pretty happy about that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I really liked listening to that episode.
Yeah.
I think I saw the movie when I was like a kid or something.
Yeah.
So my memories aren't great, but listening to you guys talk about how weird and crazy it is,
it's just so nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, it really feels like who let this happen?
Yeah.
but it's like great that it did.
Yeah.
Which made me very much so want to watch it. I haven't picked it back up. I haven't watched it since listening to the episode, but I want to because it sounds it's just so ridiculous.
It's batshit crazy. Oh my God.
That's amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
I guess then also future-wise, do you have any movies or TV shows or whatever that you are excited to cover someday or want to cover someday, or I don't know, anything like that?
In terms of, I know that like we've kind of planned out some of season 3, so like we know what we want to cover, which is cool. We have like a master list of here are all the movies that we can think of, and what Wikipedia says for here's all the video game movies. But then also you can find a lot of things that are kind of adjacent or similar. But there's a lot of new video game related stuff that like movie wise that keeps like being announced or coming out. Like they're making a Last of Us show, they're making an Uncharted movie series. I'm sure it's just there's all these things that are like interesting, and I think there's kind of a little mini renaissance of video game movies that are happening right now, which is very interesting. And I think like Detective Pikachu might have like, and Sonic even probably started that kind of trend of like, oh look, video game movies can maybe not be terrible. And so I'm like interested to see what's gonna come in the future. But I also like there's some old stuff that I'm quite interested to see. Like we're gonna do I think both of the Lara Croft Tomb Raider movies. And and I think we're gonna cover. Katie recommended this one, or thought about this one, but like there's a Castlevania Netflix series that like the first season's only like 4 episodes, and so you can just kind of, they're like half an hour each. That's like a movie, you can just kind of plug through that and see how, and it's an animated movie, which is like, or it's an animated show, so like that's a different kind of thing that we haven't covered before. So that's fun. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see what kind of garbage we can kind of find, and then also I'm like hopeful for future movies, and I would love to be able to do like as these newer movies are coming out to hopefully cover them like we did with Mortal Kombat, just because we've established that we'll have a plethora of old video game movies to cover. There's never going to be a shortage. I'm sure there's going to be there's so many, and you can start getting into the adjacent things and stuff. But even the fact that there's new stuff coming just kind of excites me. So yeah, so we'll see.
No, that's awesome. It is a good time for I think you three started your podcast at a good time, because it does feel like the video game movies are going to start rolling in, and I hope that they learn from like Mortal Kombat. Like that movie captured the essence of the game without trying to do anything it didn't need to. It was appropriate, like making it a rated R movie. Like that's what Mortal Kombat should be.
Sure,
those games,
definitely.
Those games are super violent, so they reflect that. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It should reflect that, and it's good they did that. Like, I feel like I'm sure there are a lot of video games that if you adapted them to the Mortal level combat quality, you could have tons of good ones. Like which I hope happens. And,
I mean, there's supposed to be
I'm excited for you guys to have that.
There's supposed to be some new like Resident Evil TV show coming, and as much as like I like those old Resident Evil movies, I do hope that the new show is like in terms of quality better, but don't tell Jacob that. You can just cut this part out, and then Jacob never needs to know that that I may admit that those movies are not the best, but
that's awesome. No, that's great. That's cool. I'm excited for the future of movie games that are showing up for you guys, and excited to hear them as well. So yeah, I guess kind of last question I had is, where can people find the show? So they've heard this stuff. Hopefully they're interested. Hopefully they have some movies they're hoping to go listen to. Where would they go find you?
So our website is cutscenes.ca, or you can find us on Twitter at cutscenes_pod, and also on Instagram at cutscenes_pod. But yeah, if you go to our website, all the episodes are listed there. There's not a lot. I mean, and you can also pick and choose which episodes you want to listen to. None of them are really in any kind of order. It's really just, have you seen this movie? Do you want to listen to something? I mean, other than like, we did do a series on The Witcher. I'd obviously not start with like the last episode, like we broke it down the whole season, but I wouldn't start with the last one there. But otherwise, like it's a quick thing that you can kind of just pick up, right? You don't have to listen to it from the beginning. You can kind of go through whatever you want to hear and what you know and what you like, right? So it's kind of an evergreen thing, which is kind of nice. So
yeah, no, that's perfect. And then actually, I guess also, do you have a personal Twitter or things that you'd want to promote that people should check out as well?
I mean, I don't do anything, so I have nothing to promote. But you can find me on Twitter at Travis Colnut. I'm mostly either talking about video games or X-Men comic books or maybe other sci-fi movies or TV shows that I may be watching. That's probably it, really. Or I'm just like consistently retweeting all of the cutscene stuff. So that's that's probably all I'm good for. So yeah.
No, perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, people should definitely check your stuff out. Check cutscenes out.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Thank you.
But yeah, I guess that is our kind of episode all in all. Travis, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad we talked about this game. We said it before, but I definitely like it even more after going through it together. And this has been great.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess lastly, people, if they want to check out, get in contact with us, our Twitter's at StoryEverPod. Message there. I'm pretty active on there, so definitely hit me up. Our website is TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed.com. That's got a backlog of all of our episodes. Also, anywhere you get podcasts, they're on there as well. I mentioned a Dear Esther episode. I think that's in 2018 that I did that. So maybe, first 20 episodes-ish. So go check that out if you want more of that, or, plenty of other games that have discussions similar to this.
Nice.
If you'd like to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you get them, that would be really helpful, just helping get the show in front of more faces that we can enjoy these kinds of games together. I'd super appreciate it if you want to do that.
Do it.
If you'd want, yeah. If you'd like to financially support the podcast, that would be cool too. We've got a Patreon at patreon.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed. For as little as $1 per month, that will get you a monthly bonus episode that's topical in nature. So we've done things like our favorite games from childhood, or our favorite Pokemon, or things like that. So if that sounds like something you'd want, go check it out. We'd super appreciate that. And that money does just go back into the podcast to pay for like hosting or buying games. So we'd super appreciate it if you want to do that. And yeah, that is the episode. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.